Well, hello there. I'm not sure if you expected to hear from someone like me today, but here we are. Now, I've been around for quite a while, and in my 80 years, I've learned that there are a few things worth sharing. Things you might not always hear from younger folks, but trust me, the wisdom of age has a way of teaching you lessons that can't be learned any other way. You see, when I was in my 20s, life seemed like it was just beginning. I didn't think too much about things like slowing down or what it would be like when my body eventually started to show signs of wear and tear. At that age, I felt invincible, like I could do anything, go anywhere, and never face a moment when I felt less than energetic. But boy, was I wrong about that. The body, as you get older, doesn't stay the same. It can be a humbling experience to wake up one day and realize that the things you could do easily before don't quite come as naturally anymore. And that's what brings me to the topic I want to discuss today. If you're over 60, or even pushing into your 70s or 80s, this might be something you've thought about once or twice. Or maybe you've never talked about it at all, which is perfectly fine. We don't always want to open up about the more personal aspects of our lives, especially when we're getting older. But I think it's time we have an honest conversation. Let's be real here. Things change as we age, and that includes how we experience intimacy and sexuality. Our bodies don't respond the same way they did when we were younger. And you know, that's not something anyone really prepares you for. One minute, you're in your prime, and the next, you're looking at the mirror and wondering, what happened? You might notice that your energy isn't the same, or that it's harder to get up in the mornings, or maybe some things don't even work the way they used to down there, if you catch my drift. And hey, I'm not here to sugarcoat it. It can be a bit uncomfortable at first. But let me tell you, it's normal. It's part of life. So, if you're sitting there wondering what all of this means for you, stick around. I've got a few thoughts and a little bit of advice to share from my own experiences. Maybe it'll make you think about things in a new way, or maybe it'll just help you feel a little less alone in the process. Either way, I'm glad you're here. And I promise you, we're going to approach this conversation with some good humor, some honesty, and maybe even a bit of wisdom that only comes with time. I remember, back in my younger days, I didn't give a second thought to my body. In my 20s, I was full of energy, always out and about, doing whatever I wanted without ever thinking about the consequences. I was strong, healthy, and able to keep up with anything life threw at me. But as the years went by and the decades really started to pile up, I began to notice something was different. The body that used to spring out of bed in the morning now required a little more time to get moving. The aches that weren't there before started showing up, and my joints weren't as eager to bend like they used to. Let me tell you, at first, it's frustrating. You don't realize how much you took for granted when you were young, how simple tasks, like running a few errands or going for a walk, suddenly feel like more of a challenge. And it's not just about the physical aches either. As I got older, I started to see changes in my energy levels. Some days, I'd feel like I could take on the world, and other days, I'd find myself worn out just from the simplest activities. And that, my friend, is where things like stamina and even your sex drive start to change. It's one of those things that no one really warns you about when you're young, but it's a reality that catches up to everyone eventually. As your body ages, it becomes less forgiving. You can't just push through pain or fatigue like you once did. Your body starts sending signals, subtle at first, and then not so subtle, that it needs more rest, more attention, and more care. It's easy to ignore those signs, especially when you've been used to living life at full speed. But trust me, if you don't listen, you might find yourself in a bit of a pickle. That's when I realized that taking care of my body wasn't optional anymore. It became a priority. When it comes to things like masturbation, well, that's another area where aging changes things. I'm not gonna lie, when I was younger, I didn't really think about it much. It was just part of life, something that came naturally. But as I got older, I noticed that my body didn't always respond the same way. Sometimes things didn't work the way they used to, and it was frustrating at first. But here's the truth I had to face. Your body changes, and that's okay. We all go through it, and it's just part of the process. The important thing is to be mindful of how your body is feeling. If something isn't right, it's time to take a step back and think about what might be going on. Whether it's physical limitations or just the natural slowdown of the body, you have to pay attention to those signals. Trust me, you'll thank yourself later if you do. As the years went on, I began to realize that it wasn't just my body that needed attention. It was my mind and emotions too. When you're young, you're all about physical strength and energy. You don't think as much about the mental side of life. But as you get older, your mind and emotions start to play a bigger role in your overall well-being. Let me tell you, there's more to aging than just dealing with the physical aches and pains. You've got to take care of yourself up here, too. When I hit my 60s, I found myself feeling more isolated than I had ever been. My wife had passed away, and I was living alone. That loneliness is something that sneaks up on you when you least expect it. For a long time, I just kept busy, working around the house, staying active in the community, but deep down, I was lonely. I didn't want to admit it at first, but I came to understand that loneliness can really affect you. It messes with your mental health, and that, in turn, can affect your physical health. There were times when I started thinking about intimacy, and to be honest, it wasn't always the physical side that I missed the most. Sure, that was part of it, but what I really missed was the connection, the companionship, that simple comfort of being with someone, of holding hands or sharing a quiet moment together. As I got older, I learned that intimacy doesn't have to be about sex. It can be about closeness, understanding, and just being there for one another. That kind of connection, I realized, was just as important, if not more so than anything physical. And I think that's something a lot of people forget as they age. But here's the thing, even if you're feeling lonely, there's no shame in it. It doesn't mean you have lost your worth or that you're no longer capable of feeling joy or intimacy. Sometimes it just takes a little adjustment. Maybe you can't do the things you did in your younger years, but you can find new ways to connect, to experience joy, and to fulfill your emotional needs. If you find yourself missing something in your life, whether it's companionship or just a sense of closeness, don't be afraid to reach out. Don't let yourself stay isolated because you feel like it's too late or you're too old to make changes. There are so many ways to connect with others, even later in life. And if you're dealing with emotions that are a little harder to navigate, don't hesitate to seek help. A doctor, a therapist, or even a friend can help you work through those feelings. There's no shame in it. Your mental and emotional health are just as important as your physical health, and the two are more connected than you might think. Take care of them both, and you'll find that life can still be fulfilling and meaningful, no matter your age. As I got older, I began to understand something that wasn't always clear when I was younger: how important relationships are, especially as you age. We often take our partners for granted when we're younger, thinking we have all the time in the world to enjoy each other's company. But as the years go by, you start to realize just how precious those relationships truly are. It's not just about physical attraction or the thrills of youth anymore. It's about connection, communication, and understanding each other on a deeper level. When I was in my 60s, I thought about my late wife a lot. We had been married for over 40 years, and in those years, I learned more about love, companionship, and intimacy than I ever could have imagined. We didn't always talk about it, but I always knew that intimacy was about more than just physical pleasure. It was about being there for each other, emotionally, mentally, and yes, physically too. As the years went on, we didn't just talk about our desires, we also talked about our needs, our physical needs, our emotional needs, and what it meant to grow old together. That's a lesson I want to share with you. If you're lucky enough to still have a partner by your side, cherish them. You're not just aging together in years, you're aging together in understanding. The things that might have seemed important when you were younger, things like looks or even sexual performance, start to fade into the background. What really matters as you get older is the ability to communicate openly, honestly, and without shame. That's where true intimacy thrives. And if you find yourself without a partner, don't think that intimacy is something you have to give up on. In fact, intimacy can look different at this stage in life. You might not have the same physical connection as you did when you were younger, but that doesn't mean you can't still enjoy closeness with others. It could be in the form of friendship, sharing moments of joy with family, or even meeting new people who understand where you're at in life. In some ways, I think that the older we get, the more important it becomes to find ways to connect with others. Don't isolate yourself. Stay open to relationships, even if they're not the romantic kind. Emotional connection is something that can still be deeply fulfilling, and the beauty of growing older is that you can find that connection in many different forms. Don't be afraid to open up and share yourself with the people around you, whether that's a close friend, a family member, or a new partner. It's never too late to experience the joys of meaningful connection. You know, as I sit here, reflecting on the years that have passed, I've come to realize something important. Aging doesn't have to be all about what you lose. It's also about what you gain. Sure, our bodies change, and we don't feel as spry as we once did, but that doesn't mean life isn't still full of joy, humor, and plenty of reasons to keep going. In fact, I've found that laughter becomes even more essential as you get older. If you can find humor in the everyday moments, well, that's half the battle. And let me tell you, there's nothing better than a good laugh to keep the spirit strong. I've learned to laugh at myself, and that's something I really want to encourage you to do too. Look, none of us are perfect, and we've all had our share of awkward or difficult moments. Aging comes with its own set of challenges, and sometimes you have to laugh through the tough spots. I've had my fair share of days when my body didn't want to cooperate, or when I struggled to keep up with the younger crowd. But here's the thing, there's no shame in it. If you can laugh at yourself and not take everything too seriously, life becomes a whole lot easier to navigate. Humor is the best medicine, and it doesn't come with any side effects. But let's be real for a moment. Aging can also feel like a bit of a lonely road. We don't always have the support we need, and sometimes it can feel like we're on our own, figuring things out. That's why it's so important to stay connected and keep learning. I've found that staying informed and being part of a community of people who get it, that can make all the difference. That's where this channel comes in. Elderly Hacks is all about giving you the support, tips, and laughter you need to live your best life, no matter how old you are. I encourage you to subscribe to this channel and watch our videos regularly. You'll find plenty of helpful tips, fun advice, and ways to stay positive and active as you age. We're all in this together, and sometimes it just takes a little reminder that you're not alone. Whether it's learning how to adapt to physical changes, dealing with mental health challenges, or just finding ways to make life more enjoyable, we've got you covered. So, if you want to keep laughing, learning, and living life to the fullest, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you won't regret it. Keep coming back for more, because we're always here to help you with a little wisdom, a little humor, and a lot of heart. Remember, age is just a number, and it's never too late to make the most of every moment. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next video.